This should be a fun one. Recently, we did a video about players that you should avoid in Football Manager, the players that you shouldn't sign because of hidden attributes that you can't see, and we revealed them to you, and we got a great response from it. People saying, wow, that's the reason the XYZ player has always been terrible for me. Well, today, we're bringing you even more, another team of those players that you shouldn't sign in game. There's some surprises in this list, even players that I've signed in the past where it hasn't worked out, and now I know why. Hopefully you do get some use out of it. If you do, please go ahead and smash that like button for us on the video, subscribe for more, and make sure you comment down below as well which players you always avoid in FM. The ones that you've had a bad time with, we want to hear your suggestions because we might make a full video just on your guys' picks. And like I did in the last episode when we started with Paulo Dybala, I'm starting with the most controversial choice in this list, and that is Gabriel Barbosa, the player that's playing for Flamengo in Brazil, still 26, a very good striker on paper, available for £15 million or so. He's been fantastic in Brazil since heading back from Inter Milan, a wonderkid of years gone by with Brazil international appearances. If you've seen his career, he went from Santos, did very well, went to Inter, never quite worked out there for him, nor did it work on loan at Benfica. On paper, he looks like a great addition to any club, even an elite level team. £15 million, a very good striker, a complete forward, but that's what you see on paper. If we go under the hood to the hidden attributes, and I'm not going to reveal these for every single player because it will spoil the game, I'll just show you what I mean with this first example. But if we go to the in-game editor and then player attributes, you can see a bunch of hidden mental attributes about him. He's fantastic in important matches, fairly consistent, but there's some flaws as well. You'll see he's got very high controversy, but the reason that I wouldn't suggest to sign him is his adaptability, how well he is going to adapt to new countries, and that is at a level of 2 out of 20. And he is actually one of the least adaptable players in the game this year. So for that reason, I just think you're better off getting someone else. Now, with all of these players, I'm not saying you couldn't have success with Barbosa. I know we'll get some comments where someone says, I've scored 15 goals with him in my Premier League side, and I'm sure you definitely could, but I'm just saying, for that money, with those reasons that I've given you, I think you should avoid him and go for a different option. I think on a lot of cases, it's going to take him a long time to adapt to a country, to get playing the right style of football. Obviously, he's been given that rating because of what's happened in his history when he has left his home nation of Brazil. But Barbosa, for me, is the first one that I would suggest that you avoid. Up next, we have German international Nico Schulz, who you would look at, go free agent, German international, 30 years of age, left back, a perfect option. He's had a good career in Germany, playing for the likes of Dortmund, Hoffenheim, Gladbach, and Hertha, and I would think the same as you guys. But again, when I was doing my searches for these players, I realised that Schulz might not be all that he's cracked up to be. If you went into his hidden attributes, and again, I'm not going to show it for every single player, but all of those hidden attributes, everything that makes up his personality, he has a low level in. Whether it's ambition, adaptability, temperament, sportsmanship, all of them are at a low level. He's one of the few players that actually doesn't just have one bad attribute. He's got a lot of, not terrible ones, but all bad across the board. The only one where he's got a high attribute is actually controversy, where he's got 19 out of 20, and that is an attribute that you don't want to be high. He's a poor personality to have in the dressing room. He's going to kick up a fuss when things go wrong. He'll be one of the first to speak out if things aren't going your way. So yeah, a German international available for free. I'm actually going to say to avoid him and try and sign a different left back if you can. The next player we have is a very interesting one, Vinicius Souza of Sheffield United in the Premier League, a £10 million, 24-year-old Brazilian midfielder who's been bought in from the Brazilian divisions after a loan spell out in Belgium and also in Spain for Espanyol. On paper, again, a pretty decent Premier League option, 6'2" defensive midfielder who dictates the tempo, very well rounded, and whilst there are better options out there, you might look at him and think, you know what, he could be a good signing, particularly if Sheffield get relegated. He seems like the kind of player that you might be able to pick up and make into a decent Premier League midfielder if we're using the English divisions as an example. But Vinicius Souza, under the hood in his hidden attributes, actually has a rating of 1 out of 20 for ambition. And I did a search on the FM database looking at players between a certain age range that you guys might actually sign, and then looking at players over a certain current ability, and Vinicius Souza is one of only a handful of players that has an ambition rating of only 1. What that means is he's not a very ambitious player, which means in training he's not going to work work as hard to develop. He's also going to be the first person in the dressing room when you say to your Sheffield side, you know what, I think we can avoid relegation this season, and you always get those few players that say, oh no, we're not good enough to do that. Vinicius Souza, with one ambition, will be one of those players. He's going to drag your dressing room down. With that ambition, he's just not going to develop much more than what you're seeing here, despite the fact that he is a 24-year-old who, if he did grow a little bit in his attributes, could be a very handy player. But this year in FM, he's not worth going for, not with one ambition anyway. Next, we have Roma's Italian centre-back Gianluigi Manini, who again is someone that I have signed in the past without realising why he probably isn't the best player to go for. He's in the prime of his career, ready to be signed for about £20 million or so. Great attributes all around on paper, but under the hood in the hidden attributes, he has a few major flaws. Firstly, he has a very high rating for controversy, which is not something that you really want your players to have. His adaptability is very low too, so if you're taking him outside of a nation other than Italy, you're going to struggle with how well he adapts to your team and your league. Basically, it's going to take longer for him to get up to speed and start playing at the correct level required for the kind of money that you'd probably spend on someone like Mancini. And then on top of that, his two worst hidden attributes are below the rating of 3, and that is sportsmanship and also temperament. So that's really not good for your team. He's the kind of player that's going to lose his head when things start going wrong. Combine that with 19 aggression, and you've got a player here that's probably going to get sent off as soon as things start turning against him in a match. Now, I don't know much about him in real life. Obviously, he's a key player for Roma, I'm sure, but I don't know where he's got this reputation from. But I can also see in his player traits, he winds up opponents and argues with officials, so he must be the kind of player that has rubbed a few people the wrong way in previous matches. But Mancini, for £20 million or so, there are better options out there who are going to be less, let's say, Marmite for your team. Your fans might love him with some of the things that he does, but he's going to cause you problems as a manager in the dressing room, and also probably getting sent off more times than you'd want. Before we see the next player though, just to let you know, I do have my own YouTube channel, linked in the description down below if you do want to check it out. It's all Football Manager content, so if you enjoy this, you'll likely enjoy my channel as well, but as opposed to being a bit more informative like we do here on FMSCOUT, it's more entertainment based. So we do Football Manager rebuilds, where in a space of 25 minutes we will tell a 5 or 6 season story with a club, and on top of that I also do YouTube shorts about Wonderkids you might not have heard of. So if that sounds interesting to you, make sure you come on over, hit the subscribe button. I'd really appreciate any support that we can get. But let's move on to our next player. Next we have one that is a lot more simple. This is Matteo Murray of Borussia Dortmund, who very often, pretty much every time to be honest with you, his contract will expire in the first few years at Dortmund and he'll be available as a free agent. And again, on paper, he looks like a very good player. 23 years of age, Spaniard, good ability with his attributes, formerly of La Masia as well, played for Dortmund, played for some big clubs. As a free agent right back, he definitely seems like a good pickup, and I've signed him in a few saves before as well. But what I didn't know, and I probably should have done if I just checked his injury history, is that this guy has been, absolutely plagued with injuries throughout his career, as you can see, and he does have an injury proneness rating of over 18, which tells you just how high his injury proneness is. That's only out of 20. He's going to be injured most of the time in your saves, and for that reason, probably isn't worth going for. As a free agent, maybe you can kind of get around it if you're only using him as a depth player, but really for the wages you're going to offer, or if you do buy him outright, you can spend that money better, I think. Matteo Murray, I would say avoid him. Next, we have Luca Zanetti, the only goalkeeper in this list, in this team of course. He's a French 25-year-old goalie, available for about £1 million. He's playing for Eibar in, I believe, the second division of Spain. Good attributes. Yes, he's small for a goalkeeper, but looks like he should be decent. But obviously there's a reason he's in this list. He has got the worst version of the holy trinity of hidden attributes, which is injury proneness, important matches, and consistency. They're the ones I tend to focus on the most when looking at players, and for him, he's injury prone, he's not consistent, and he's bad in big games as well. The 3 that you don't want, he has got. Now, a lot of you might say, how can I see these hidden attributes without having the in-game editor? Well, you actually can't. However, if you look at players' scout reports in your team, you can get a rough idea of how good a player is. Let's take Ruben Dias here, for example, and go to his report. You will see consistency is something that is mentioned in the pros here with a very dark green colour. That means his level of consistency is very high on the meter of 1 to 20. If it was a bit more of a lighter colour green, say something like this, that would mean his consistency is about 13 or 14. Oppositely, if he had poor consistency, it would show as an orange, and if it was really bad, it would show as a red. Things like consistency will appear in a coach report. You won't get an exact number for it. The same with injury proneness, versatility, versatility. As you can see here, he's only good in one position, suggests he's not very versatile, and he relishes big matches. That suggests he's got a good rating for important matches. So whilst you can't usually find everything out about a player, if you scout a player long enough, you might get a few of these things pop up in the pros or cons. Now, if you don't see anything, say consistency is neither a pro nor a con, it likely means he's got a rating of about 8 to 12 in that consistency meter, so he's not too bad, he's not too good, it's not even worth mentioning in his coach report. So that is how you can find out about these hidden attributes, even without the editor, for those that are interested. Carrying on with our list, so we've got Anthony Martial up next. The 27-year-old Man United forward isn't someone that most of us would ever spend money on, but of course, year one with Manchester United, he will usually be let go and be available as a free agent. Usually only the top clubs will be able to attract someone like Martial, who is a decent player, great quality, but as we know in real life, you see him once every 6 months, it feels like, for Man U, and he spends the rest of the time injured. In FM, it's the same. His injury proneness is very high, and for the kind of wages he's going to command, just don't get him. No offence to you, Anthony Martial, but you can get many better strikers out there. If you're after a Japanese bargain, then I can forgive you for thinking Shun Nakajima would be a good option. One of the best players from the Japanese divisions, a star player for his side, Urawa Red Diamonds. He is a 28-year-old with international experience, seems to have done pretty well, good attributes on paper, and if you're after the next Matoma for your team, then Nakajima could be a good player. At least that's what you might think, because actually his hidden attributes are poor in a lot of areas, but particularly one, his adaptability, has a rating of only 1 out of 20, meaning he's really going to find it hard to move to a new country. That must have been given to him after his time in, I mean, what happened to him here? I don't know the player personally, but he moved to Portugal for £3 million from the Japanese divisions, then got a £30 million move to Qatar, played 7 times, and then moved to Portugal for 10 million. If anyone knows the story, do let me know in the comments, but there's a reason why he's been given 1 adaptability, and I imagine it's because his time didn't go very well abroad. So Nakajima, even if he does seem like a good option, if you're not playing in Japan, he's not worth going for. Next, we have a player playing in the Belgian divisions for Standard Liège on loan from Club Bruges. This is Camel S, who is a Ghanaian international 23-year-old winger, and again, on paper, for £3 million or so, looks like he could be a good option for a low-level Premier League team, high-level Championship level of club, but his consistency is a very, very low rating, one of the worst in the game for a player of his ability rating, and I really just think if you've got the money to spend on a winger, I don't think Soa would be someone that you'd go for anyway, but just in case he does come up in your scout reports, avoid him. His consistency isn't high, not as well known as some of the other players, but there might be a reason for that. This guy can't seem to nail down a good performance, and for that reason, Sports Interactive have rated him very low in the consistency category. 2 players to go now, getting towards the end of the video, so make sure you do smash the like button. But the next player is playing for Boca Juniors as an important player for the Argentinian club. It's the Colombian international 27-year-old Sebastian Villa, who has came from the Colombian divisions and been pretty solid for Boca Juniors in his time there. And as far as wingers go, for that kind of price point, he actually does look like a very good talent and someone that your scouts may definitely recommend, particularly if you are a lower level Premier League team. He could be a very good player for you, but his hidden attributes aren't something to shout home about. He has the highest rating for controversy in the game, 20 out of 20. Where he got that from, I don't know. And if you're wondering what does controversy do, well, I can tell you there's an article here that I'm reading which says positive effects of controversy: none. Negative effects of controversy is that he's more often going to criticise the manager for his team talks, go to the media and whatnot, and also he's more likely to ignore your instructions, whether that's down to training new roles or traits or tutoring. So that tells you everything you need to know. He's not worth going for. A controversial player is someone that's going to undermine your job as manager, and for that reason, having max controversy isn't something to be very proud of, and I don't think Sebastian Villa is the kind of person that's going to improve your team. And our final player in this list is Matias Reus, a Brazilian playing for Sporting Club de Portugal out in the Portuguese divisions, wanted by Tottenham here, able to play as a left back or centre back, could even do that modern day inverted kind of thing that you see often with fullbacks nowadays, and he seems like a very good pick. But he is in this list for a reason, and whilst he isn't the worst in this list, and I would actually say you could probably get a good tune out of him if you did sign him, you might just want to avoid him and go for someone else, because he has 3 hidden attributes that aren't at a good level level whatsoever. Loyalty, sportsmanship, and professionalism, all of those were at a low rating with the Brazilian, and whilst he does kind of counteract that by being a very ambitious player, and you can see that his personality style is ambitious, he has very good ambition and decent hidden attributes in other areas, I just think for those reasons, he might not be worth the £15 million or so that you would have to pay for a 28-year-old as well. It might not be worth going for him, and instead spending that money on somebody else with a potentially better personality. Also, put into consideration, he does have a very high rating for controversy, not as high as some of the others, but it's above 15, and I'll give you a clue, it's above 16 as well. So really, he's maybe not the kind of personality you want to have when it comes to things he might do in the dressing room. Yes, with 14 determination and his ambition, he could be a pretty good mentor for some of your younger players, but overall, I just think he's best to avoid. You could have good success with them, but I just think it's better to go for other options. Some of them, though, are definitely just complete avoid, never touch. But there you go, that is a full team of players that you should avoid in your save. If you did enjoy it, smash the like button, subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time. Thank you, and goodbye.